Energon isn't just fuel, it's a spectrum that ranges from mundane battery acid all the way up to literal god blood, and every single variant has completely different rules, side effects, and body counts. So today, I'm breaking down every Energon type in Transformers and what makes each one dangerous. Starting with the one that started it all, Raw Energon. Raw Energon is the foundation of everything. It's the unrefined, crystalline lifeblood of Cybertron itself, pulled straight from the planet's core, and it predates the Transformers by billions of years. Before a single Cybertronian ever walked, this stuff was already sitting in the ground, glowing blue and purple and waiting to ruin someone's day. Here's the thing, the very substance that every Transformer needs to survive can also kill them on contact. Direct exposure to Raw Energon can overload a Cybertronian's circuits entirely. That's like humans needing water to live but dying every time they touch a lake. And it gets worse. Raw Energon degrades without refinement. You can't just stockpile crystals in a cave and call it a savings account. Without processing, the stuff becomes useless, which is exactly why the Cybertronians had to develop stabilized forms in the first place. This is Transformers' version of crude oil, essential, explosive, and the single biggest reason wars start. Every conflict in every continuity traces back to who controls this glowing rock. But Raw Energon is just the beginning, because once the Cybertronians figured out how to tame it, they created something far more iconic, Energon cubes. Here's the thing about Energon in its raw form. It's volatile, unstable, and about as practical to carry around as a lit stick of dynamite. You can't stockpile it, you can't trade it, you definitely can't stack it neatly in a warehouse and build an empire on top of it. So at some point in Cybertron's ancient history, someone had the bright idea to compress all that chaotic energy into neat, glowing cubes. And that single invention changed everything. The cube format took abstract, dangerous energy and turned it into something tangible, something you could count, hoard, and kill for. A portable fuel source that kept Cybertronian warriors powered and operational in the field, which, given that this is Transformers, means they're always in the field. They're basically the gold bars of Cybertron, and if you've watched literally any Transformers series since 1984, you already know what the Decepticon master plan is. Every single time, we need more cubes. That's it. That's the scheme. Megatron didn't conquer half the galaxy because he had a complex ideology. He conquered it because he had more glowing boxes than the other guy. Starscream, status report. We have acquired the cubes, Lord Megatron. Excellent. Get more cubes, but that's exactly why the stakes always feel real. Entire wars weren't fought over territory or ideology. They were fought over who controlled the cube supply. You can't eat a philosophy, you can eat a cube. Well, drink, absorb, whatever Transformers do. But if standard Energon cubes are the backbone of Cybertronian civilization, Dark Energon is the thing trying to snap that backbone in half. Dark Energon. Up until now, we've been talking about Energon like it's fuel, something you mine, refine, cube up, and distribute. Dark Energon is where that stops being the case. Because Dark Energon doesn't just power a Cybertronian, it rewrites them. The substance is linked directly to Unicron, the literal god of destruction in Transformers mythology, and it looks the part. Where standard Energon glows that familiar electric blue, Dark Energon appears as deep crimson or pitch black crystals. That's not fuel, that's a warning sign shaped like a rock. Here's where it gets dark. In Transformers Prime, a single drop of Dark Energon can kill or permanently damage a Cybertronian, not weaken, kill. Larger quantities don't just scale the damage up, they induce temporary insanity and permanent personality shifts. Exposure causes erratic aggression and moral corruption, fundamentally altering who a Cybertronian is at their core. It's less like drinking poison and more like inviting something else into your head. And Megatron, because of course it was Megatron, famously weaponized the stuff. He didn't just use it as a power source, he used it as a tool of psychological dominion over his own followers, which is, not ideal for workplace morale. But here's the fan debate that actually matters. Is Dark Energon inherently evil? Does it carry sentient corruption from Unicron himself? Or is it neutral energy that Megatron chose to twist into a weapon? Because the answer fundamentally changes Megatron's culpability. One version makes him a victim of cosmic corruption. The other makes him a guy who found the worst substance in the universe and thought, yeah, I can use this. And if Dark Energon is the corrupted nightmare variant, wait until you hear what Red Energon does to the concept of a a fair fight. Red Energon. Red Energon is Cybertronian steroids. There's no other way to put it. You take it, you get faster, way faster, and then you come back down like nothing happened. Which is, you know, exactly the kind of thing that starts arguments. Here's how it works. A Cybertronian consumes Red Energon and their speed jumps to absurd levels. We're talking near instantaneous movement, the kind where you're standing in one spot and then you're just somewhere else. During that window, a reasonable strategist becomes a blur. Tactical thinking doesn't matter anymore when you can move faster than anyone can react. You're not planning, you're just everywhere at once. The stuff first showed up prominently in Transformers Prime, where both Autobots and Decepticons were tripping over each other trying to get their hands on it. Starscream in particular got real attached to the idea of being the fastest thing on the battlefield. And honestly, can you blame him? It's a temporary power boost that turns you into something basically untouchable. You speed around for a bit, the effect wears off, and you're back to normal. Maybe a little embarrassed about what you did to that building, but yourself. But that's exactly where the debate starts. Fans have been arguing about this one for years. Is Red Energon a legitimate tactical resource, or is it cheating? Because the thing about that kind of speed increase is that it works. It's tempting precisely because the upside is so massive, and that makes it harder to justify not using it. The only catch is rarity. Red Energon is significantly harder to find than standard blue, so you can't exactly build a supply chain around it. It's a clutch play, not a lifestyle. But speaking of standard blue, let's talk about the baseline that every other variant gets measured against. Blue Energon. After everything we just covered, Blue Energon feels like a letdown. No corruption, no time manipulation, no whispering voices telling you to betray your friends, just fuel. Boring, reliable, perfectly stable fuel, and that's exactly why it runs the entire Cybertronian civilization. Blue Energon is the standard refined variant, the baseline against which every other type is measured. It's chemically stable, universally compatible with every Cybertronian system ever built, and safe for long-term storage. You can stack it in a warehouse for centuries, and it'll work exactly the same as the day you refined it. No degradation, no surprises, no sudden personality changes. Here's the thing nobody appreciates. Blue Energon has zero known side effects when consumed in normal quantities. Zero. Name one other variant on this list that can say that. Dark Energon turns you into a puppet. Red Energon makes you a ticking clock. Blue Energon just keeps you alive. Which is, you know, not ideal for dramatic storytelling, but pretty fantastic if you're a giant robot who needs to function tomorrow. This stuff has been mined on Cybertron for over 4 million years. It forms the backbone of both Autobot and Decepticon supply chains, meaning two factions that disagree on literally everything still agree that Blue Energon is the standard. You can repurpose it as ammunition or disperse it in liquid form for area effect applications. It's fuel, it's a weapon, it's a battery. Some fans call it underrated, others call it dull, but every flashy variant has a catch, and Blue Energon's superpower is that it doesn't. Not all heroes glow purple and whisper about destiny. But speaking of variants with a catch, let's talk about one that takes Energon's relationship with biology in a very different direction. Green Energon. Every variant we've covered so far does something to a Cybertronian's body. Green Energon does something to their mind. And honestly, it might be the most unsettling one yet, not because it hurts, but because it changes what a Transformer fundamentally cares about. Green Energon is a rare variant, most notably featured in Transformers Prime, where it functions as a powerful psychoactive substance. We're not talking strength boosts or speed upgrades. A Cybertronian exposed to this stuff essentially gets high. Their cognitive processes go haywire. They experience hallucinations, erratic behavior, impaired judgment, the whole package. A giant metal robot stumbling around seeing things that aren't there and making terrible decisions, which is, you know, not ideal if you're in the middle of a war. Here's the thing, Green Energon doesn't make you evil. It's not Dark Energon's corrupting cousin. It just scrambles your brain module until you're functionally useless. Imagine a 30-foot tall warrior built for combat suddenly unable to tell friend from foe because the walls are melting. One day you're a disciplined soldier, the next you're swatting at phantom scraplets. I don't know what to tell you. The stuff is extremely uncommon, which is probably for the best given what it does to anyone who gets near it. Its rarity means most Cybertronians never encounter it, but when they do, the results are immediately obvious and deeply embarrassing for everyone involved. What makes it genuinely interesting from a lore perspective is the implication that Energon isn't just fuel. It's a spectrum of substances with wildly different neurological effects on mechanical beings. The fact that Cybertronians can experience something functionally identical to intoxication and psychedelic psychedelic episodes raises questions about their biology that nobody in universe seems eager to answer. But if you think green Energon's mind-altering properties are strange, wait until you see what gold Energon does to a Cybertronian's actual cognitive performance. Gold Energon and every other Energon variant on this list does something flashy. It makes you faster, stronger, angrier, or dead. Gold Energon doesn't do any of that. It just explodes in your hands if you look at it wrong. And honestly, that's almost worse. Gold Energon is volatile, like genuinely dangerous to handle volatile. In the Unicron trilogy, this stuff is so hazardous that only Omnicons and Terrorcons can safely process it. Regular Cybertronians can't just pick it up and pop it like a supplement. They need specialized handlers to convert it into something usable. So you've got a substance that looks premium, looks powerful, and will absolutely ruin your day if you don't have the right crew to manage it. Which is, you know, not ideal. Here's the thing, the entire value of Gold Energon comes down to processing. Omnicons refine it for the Autobots, Terrorcons harvest it for the Decepticons. Both sides need it, neither side can safely touch it without their respective specialists. It's basically the Cybertronian equivalent of enriched uranium. Extremely useful, extremely dangerous, and you'd better hope the guy handling it knows what he's doing. And that creates a dynamic nobody talks about enough. The war over Gold Energon isn't about firepower. It's about who controls the supply chain. Whoever has the Omnicons or Terrorcons has the leverage. The raw crystals are worthless without the handlers. It turns the entire conflict into a logistics problem, which is somehow the most realistic thing in a show about giant robots. Gold Energon mostly shows up in the Energon series and doesn't carry over into other continuities. Some in the community straight up call it a plot device with a shelf life. And honestly, they might have a point, but at least Gold Energon has clear limitations. The next variant on this list threw the rulebook into a furnace, ORE13. Everything we've covered so far has one thing in common, it's fuel. You consume it, you burn it, you fight over it, and eventually you need more. Or 13 doesn't work like that. It's a hyper-concentrated form of Energon, sometimes called Ultra Energon, that doesn't just power you up, it supercharges you to the point where your own body can't handle it. A single chunk of this stuff can massively amplify a Transformer's strength, speed, and firepower well beyond their normal limits. Sounds great, right? Here's where it gets unsettling. That power boost comes with extreme instability. We're talking energy surges that fry internal systems, erratic behavior, and the very real possibility of your frame tearing itself apart because it's running on something it was never designed to process. That's not fuel, that's performance-enhancing drugs in crystal form. Or 13 got its biggest spotlight across several IDW comic runs and later showed up in games like Transformers, Devastation, and Earth Wars, where deposits were treated as rare, strategically critical resources worth starting wars over, which means factions were literally killing each other for the privilege of poisoning themselves. Cool, that's also a thing that happened, and the really nasty part is how deceptively accessible it is. Or 13 deposits can sit underground for millennia, undetected, until someone stumbles onto a vein and suddenly has more power than they know what to do with. But without proper regulation, you're looking at cascading system failures, energy feedback loops, and eventually total burnout. Basically, your entire body cooking itself from the inside out. Now, there's a legitimate debate about whether OR 13 even belongs on a list like this. Comic fans treat it as essential deep lore. Broader continuity fans point out it barely exists outside of IDW. Both sides have a point, but any substance that can turn an average Cybertronian into an unstable walking bomb earns its spot regardless of screen time. But if a rock that overloads your body sounds dangerous, wait until you hear what happens when Cybertronians try to brew their own Energon from scratch. Synthetic Energon. Every variant we've covered so far has one thing in common. You have to find it. You have to dig it up, fight over it, hoard it, and pray nobody takes it from you. Synthetic Energon throws that entire dynamic in the trash, because if you can make your own fuel, you don't need Cybertron. You don't need deposits. You don't need to negotiate with anyone, and that terrifies every faction that built their power on controlling supply. The concept is straightforward. Autobots, tired of getting outmuscled in the resource war, decided to just build Energon from scratch in a lab. The result is a substitute that functions similarly to the real thing, but never quite matches it, almost like a knockoff designer bag that still carries your groceries just fine. In Transformers Prime, Ratchet's formula provided a noticeable performance boost at first, enhanced speed, strength, the works, which sounds great until you realize the stuff is inherently unstable, and the gap between working perfectly and your arm falling off mid-swing is terrifyingly small. Early formulas were a disaster. Test subjects experienced power fluctuations, aggressive behavioral shifts, and dangerous system instability. Basically, the Cybertronian equivalent of buying gas station sushi and hoping for the best. The synthesis process itself is incredibly difficult to get right, and mass production isn't as simple as flipping a switch. You need a dedicated facility, specialized knowledge, and a chemist who doesn't mind their work occasionally exploding. But here's what makes synthetic Energon the most politically dangerous variant on this list. It breaks scarcity. The entire Transformers conflict is built on there's not enough fuel and we're all gonna kill each other over it. A faction with a working synthesis lab doesn't play that game anymore. They're energy independent. Some fans argue this undermines the core drama of the franchise. Others say it's the most realistic technological progression the lore has ever introduced. Both sides have a point, but if synthetic Energon is fuel that occasionally backfires on its user, Toxin is fuel that was specifically designed to backfire on everyone else. Toxin, every other Energon variant on this list, exists to power something. Toxin exists to kill it. That's not an exaggeration. Toxin is the only Energon variant that serves zero constructive purpose. No fuel applications, no enhancement properties, no strategic utility beyond one thing: destruction of Cybertronian life. And it's disturbingly good at its job. Here's how it works. Toxin is a naturally occurring toxic form of Energon that attacks Cybertronian systems on contact. Exposure causes rapid deterioration of core functions, nausea, weakness, system failures. A high enough concentration can render a Cybertronian permanently offline within minutes. Not damaged, not weakened, inert, functionally dead, which is, you know, not ideal. The stuff behaves exactly like you'd expect a radioactive poison to behave. Proximity alone is enough to start degrading a Transformer's systems. You don't need to inject it, weaponize it, or refine it. Just being near it does the work for you. Megatron figured this out and attempted to use Toxin as a weapon of mass destruction, because of course he did. His plan was to launch it into Earth's atmosphere and poison every Autobot on the planet in one move. And here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. The Autobots didn't just have to fight Megatron, they had to handle the Toxin itself without dying in the process. Bulkhead ended up bearing the worst of it, suffering severe toxin poisoning that left him critically damaged and struggling to recover for episodes afterward. Not a quick fix, not a pop some Energon and walk it off situation, lasting brutal consequences. When your poison is so nasty that a wrecker built like a tank nearly doesn't come back from it, you've created something truly special. Toxin is Energon turned against itself, a substance built from the very thing that gives Cybertronians life, but twisted into something that takes it away. Some fans treat it as a legitimate bioweapon concept with real narrative weight. Others dismiss it as a one-arc plot device. But the design philosophy behind it is hard to ignore. But if Toxin represents Energon corrupted by nature, wait until you hear about the variant corrupted by something far older and far less rational: Angolmois Energy. Most English-speaking Transformers fans have never heard this name. And honestly, that's a shame, because Angolmois Energy might be the single most terrifying substance in the entire franchise. Here's the thing: Angolmois isn't Energon. It's not a variant, not a color swap, not a different grade of fuel. It's a completely separate cosmic force originating from Japanese Transformers continuities, particularly Beast Wars 2 back in 1998, and it operates on rules that make Dark Energon look like a mild headache. Where Energon sustains a Cybertronian, Angolmois consumes them. It doesn't power you up, it possesses you. Exposure causes physical mutation, personality inversion, and complete alignment corruption. A Cybertronian who absorbs enough Angolmois energy doesn't get stronger. They become a fundamentally different being. Their ethics dissolve, their free will evaporates, and whatever walks out the other side wearing their face is something else entirely, which is, you know, not ideal. And the scariest part, Angolmois is theorized to predate Cybertron itself, predate Primus. This isn't some corrupted byproduct of the Transformers universe. It's a force tied to multiversal chaos and cosmic entities that existed before the god of the Cybertronians even showed up. It can permanently shatter a Cybertronian's power ceiling, sure, but the price is your mind, your morality, and basically everything that makes you a person. Now, Western fans who stumble across Angolmois references almost always assume it's just Dark Energon with a Japanese name. Turns out, no. Dark Energon is Unicron's blood, a corruption of something that already exists. Angolmois is older than the thing being corrupted. It's not tainted Energon, it's the anti-Energon, a primordial force from outside the system entirely. Japanese continuity fans have been screaming screaming this distinction into the void for decades, and they're right. There's mythic depth here that English language canon has barely scratched. But if Anglemois represents the darkest possible energy source, there's one final variant that sits at the absolute opposite end of the spectrum: Primus Blue. Every other variant on this list follows rules. You mine it, you refine it, you burn it, you run out. Primus Blue doesn't follow rules. Primus Blue is the rule maker. This isn't Energon in any functional sense. It's the lifeblood of a god. Primus, the creator deity of all Cybertronians, the living core of Cybertron itself. A single molecule of it can bring a Cybertronian back from complete functional death. Not repair, not reboot. Resurrection, full stop. You cannot mine it, you cannot synthesize it, you cannot bottle it up and save it for later. It exists only in trace quantities inside sacred Cybertronian sites or within Primus's body. A Cybertronian exposed to Primus Blue doesn't just get a power boost, they experience divine clarity, omniscient visions, direct connection to the consciousness of their creator. For a few moments, they become an avatar of creation itself, which sounds amazing until you hear the cost. Prolonged exposure doesn't kill you, it does something arguably worse. Your ego dissolves, your sense of self evaporates, you transcend physical form entirely and just stop being you. So you either touch the mind of God for a few seconds and walk away changed forever, or you stay too long and become part of the furniture, cosmically speaking. Here's where it gets complicated. The canonical evidence for Primus Blue is thin, really thin. Most of what the community knows is inferred from Matrix of Leadership lore, late G1 episodes, and IDW comics that treat Primus as a sentient being. Some fans argue Primus Blue is the source of the Matrix's power. Others say it's elaborate fan theory dressed up as canon. Nobody has a definitive answer, because the real question isn't whether Primus Blue exists, it's whether it should. The entire Transformers conflict runs on scarcity. Factions fight and die over Energon because there's never enough. Introduce a substance that can undo death itself, and you've either written the most beautiful piece of lore in the franchise or completely broken it. At the very top of the Energon spectrum, fuel becomes indistinguishable from divinity, and that's either poetry or a plot hole. I don't know what to tell you. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.